All right, can I respond? Because there was a lot there, so I want to try to respond to as much of it.
I didn't mean to flood the zone.
No.
Take it one by one.
We can go one by one. Okay, first of all, when I describe the lockdowns that swept this nation in 2020 as totalitarian, just to be clear, I'm not being hyperbolic. When you're waking up every morning to watch your TV, to find out from your governor what you're allowed to do today, including am I allowed to go to work? Am I allowed to have a funeral for my father? Am I allowed to see my family? Am I allowed to step outside without a cover on my face? There is one word and one word only for that, and that is totalitarianism. I'm sorry. That's not slightly hyperbolic. Now, you could argue that this totalitarianism was justified because of the virus, but it's certainly not, and it's not, but you could argue that, but it certainly is totalitarian. If we ever looked on paper, any of us at any point pre-COVID, and said this government is instituting this policy, we would all recognize that as being totalitarian, as totalitarian as any society has ever existed. If that word doesn't apply to lockdowns, then it doesn't apply to anything. Now, I gotta say, listen, in this world, and I'll say this is true for our world, for the corporate media, for any time you're getting in front of a camera with a lot of people watching and talking about things that matter, the currency that we trade in is the truth. That's the whole currency. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be right about everything, but it has to mean that I really believe what I'm saying. And if I'm lying to the audience, then I've betrayed my most fundamental duty. Right. And I would also put as a subset of lying, if I'm pretending I know something that I don't know at all, and I'm taking a very strong opinion, and with 5 minutes of research, you could find out that this is completely false, that's another form of lying. Now, sir, you have completely shirked all of your responsibility, and now you're pointing the finger at China. By the way, you were one of the people who demonized Donald Trump for calling it the China virus.
Yeah, it used to be racist if you said China did it. Now, we just accept that.
At the time, okay? So, when it was convenient for you, you had no problem smearing someone for pointing the finger at China. Your entire network also called everyone racist if we speculated that it came from the lab. I mean, literally, I did a podcast, it was either in April or May of 2020, when it already became obvious at that point that the lab was at least a very plausible, like we found out that 3 of the people at the lab went to the hospital with COVID-like symptoms, and there was a lab where they were doing gain of function research. And it was like, man, this sure does look like it. I had to stop talking about it for 4 months after that because I would have lost my entire YouTube channel, that was it. It was very clear if you said anything about that for months, you'd be shut down. During that time, you guys at CNN were just mocking everybody who would dare say it was a lab leak, and then we were unable to defend ourselves, or those who did got their livelihoods ruined.
I don't know what was happening on YouTube. I just want to be clear. I was not doing that. When Donald Trump started off, he was calling it the
China virus.
Cold. No, not initially. Initially, he said it was going to go away. It was a cold. I don't fault him for that. He was getting a lot of mixed information, and I know it. I don't blame him for that. He will be blamed for it, not by me. Then it gets bad. That's when he started calling it the China virus. I said to him, in the beginning you said China's been great to us. You can Google it. You can have that great producer you have. Look it up. China's been great. China's been working with us.
Shout out to you, Rob.
China's been great. Yeah, Rob, you're amazing. Then it gets bad for Trump. Trump then starts calling it the China virus. I have always pursued the lab leak. I have always talked about it. I have always said it mattered. You can check and find out. You can boo, but remember, that's about preference.
Yeah, but
not
Chris,
truth.
do you not feel any responsibility for the fact that during this time, in the greatest crisis in modern American history, that you're up there, and we'll get into the vaccine stuff in a second, but just sticking with the lockdown period, you are interviewing your brother, the lockdown governor, every day, giving him the most softball interviews. I remember at one point when the scandal with
they weren't.
Well, hold on, let me. You got a nice big rant. So in the middle of lockdowns.
Rant for rant.
Sure. So in the middle of lockdowns, think about, this is more a comment on the network CNN than it is on you, but you said at one point, a couple years later, or over a year later, when your brother had his scandal. By the way, I respect you for always defending your brother. I would always defend my brother. I understand that. But you said on air on CNN, you said, listen, I haven't been allowed to cover this at all, because it would be a conflict of interest for me to cover it. Yet during lockdowns, every single night, CNN allowed you to have the interview of your brother without any meaningful pushback at all. Listen, I understand this is your family I'm talking about, and I don't mean to make things personal in that way.
You kind of do, but I'm open to it.
Well, no, I mean, I don't, but I have no other choice.
Like, well, you could be accurate, which is...
No, I'm being accurate.
You're not, because nobody thought...
What did I say that was inaccurate?
Nobody thought the interviews I was doing with Andrew were news interviews.
Well, no one I know thinks anything on CNN is news. Okay. But...
That's fine.
No, when it's on the cable news network, the presumption is that this is news.
Hold on. How many people in this room thought that when I was interviewing my brother, it was going to be a hardball interview, and that's why you were watching? Because this is what Chris Cuomo is known for.
but that's the whole
Come
point.
on, come on.
But that's the point.
But he was other places giving interviews all day long. He was coming on at that time with me because people were enjoying the dynamic of getting some sense of familiarity and comfort in an uncomfortable time. That's what the draw was. He was getting asked questions all over the place. What I said I couldn't cover wasn't him in COVID. It was him in anything. It wasn't going to be a serious news interview. And what I was talking about specifically was not Andrew and COVID.
It was meant to endear the guy who was killing their grandparents. That's what it was for. They wanted to endear fucking his brother who was making decisions that killed millions of people, not millions, but thousands of people in New York City.
Allegations.
No, I know.
Who wants to hear me talk about my brother's allegations and think I'm being...
No, it's a clear conflict of interest,
That's what I was
as was
talking
you
about.
interviewing him about lockdown.
Well, it's not like that's the only place he was on during
here's
COVID.
one person in cable news who did some real journalism, okay? Tucker Carlson he got Governor Murphy from New Jersey on his show. Yeah. And he asked him one simple question that was never asked of any of the other lockdown governors. And you know what the question was? He had just shut down, it was either a church or a synagogue, I can't remember. And he goes, oh, wait a minute, so you just shut down this temple and arrested people for worshiping. Where do you get the authority to do that? Because I've read the First Amendment, and it's pretty clear that you have the freedom of religion. And so where do you get the authority to shut that down? And you know what Governor Murphy said? He said, well, I'm not thinking about the Constitution. That's above my pay grade. So let me, just to make this clear, okay?
Answer.
Yeah, it sure is. But you know what? Your brother and none of the rest had a better one. They just never got asked that question. So here's
it has nothing to do with the First Amendment.
Yeah, of course it does, Chris. Here's the bottom line. There's no clause in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights that says, unless there's a virus that we don't know that much about, and then this all goes away. The point is that it was completely criminal for all of these governments to lock down. They had no authority to derive the right to lock down a state from. And yet you, instead of anyone at CNN thinking, hey, if we have Andrew Cuomo on here every single night, maybe someone should ask him that question. They went, no, give him a cushy interview with his brother. Like, you don't find that incredibly corrupt?
No, and here's why. Is that the only place that the governor of New York was? Is that the only access to media that they had to him? So your criticism really goes to all media, but really what it is an extension that you didn't like the lockdowns. It's not...
You did have him on. Why didn't you ask him some questions, you shithead? That's his point.
About whether there was legal authority for them. That's why there's been no lawsuit in the lockdowns that has proceeded in one. Because it wasn't about the authority of the government to use emergency...
He literally said, blame all the other media because we didn't ask anything but softball questions. What the fuck?
Measures in public safety situations is about whether they should have. And I'm totally fine with that. And you saw them all over the world. Many more severe than they were in the United States and for longer. But is it worth reviewing? Yes. What I'm saying is that my criticism would be that your interest is about how it generates attention. And that's fine, but it won't fix. I'm telling you right now, if God forbid something happened again, we would be lost about how to do it differently. And you'd have a pocket of people, 25, 35%, who say, I'm not going to do it. And you would lose that case again.
You know, it's really wild, Chris, for you to psychoanalyze me and say my interest here is in generating attention. You're the guy who, when at CNN, said everything to defend the vaccine when you were being sponsored by Big Pharma. And all of a sudden now that you're here on PBD show, you'll say the truth. No, but for
I'm
you
not
to
sponsored by Big Pharma.
No.
I'm not against the vaccine.
Hold on. You're not even listening to what I'm saying. You're attacking my motive, saying all I care about is generating interest. Meanwhile, when those CNN checks were coming in, you said nothing that would have put them in jeopardy. But now that you're here, you're starting to tell a little bit of the truth.
So hold on. No. That's not true. I don't have a changed opinion about the vaccine. Chris,
go look at the montages of what you were saying then to what you're saying now. And you don't have a changed opinion.
Absolutely not. And when Pat put out this clip, look, we can talk about it. I'm not offended by the questions or the suggestion. Here's why. Pat said that I wouldn't take it again if I could do it over again. That's not what I said. If they wanted me to take a booster right now, my doctors say it's not working for me. I have as much natural immunity as I'm going to get. I got as much hybrid immunity as I can get. You make the same decisions. They don't have the mandates the same way, except with kids in school protocols, which again I think should be on the table to discuss, because we are an outlier when it comes to our kids in schools and the vaccine. The vaccine, let's talk about it. What is your beef about the vaccine? Do you believe it didn't work?
No. It certainly didn't work at all in the way it was sold.
When we spoke and I asked you about the vaccine to qualify this and clarify it, I said, if 2026, the second COVID comes in, and they mandate taking vaccines, would you take it? You said no.
I thought we're talking about, like, if they need me to take another one for this virus.
No,
I didn't understand the question.
Specifically asked, if another COVID comes out and they force us to take vaccines, knowing what you now know now, Would you take it again? You said no. Just to qualify, that's what.
I thought we
clarify,
were
that's what you
talking
said.
about if it's this virus. Well, why would I lie? Why would I lie
so
about?
Let me just show something. Guy, I want to show something because you said a couple things here. For me, you have to know I'm America first. Period. I'm about us figuring out a way to make this the greatest country in the world and keep it the greatest country in the world. That's what my priority is. Period. My kids are here. I have 4 kids here. We all have kids. We're all family folks. We want to make sure this place is a safe place and the greatest country in the world. Now, you said something. I got the question for you. You said they tried to make Fauci the boogeyman.
Yes.
Right. Brother, when 9/11 happened, the one thing that they did during 9/11, they made somebody else the enemy. We all came together.
Yes.
During COVID, they never made China the enemy. Pelosi went to Chinatown claiming how racist it was for what Trump
Yes.
did. And instead of making China the enemy, we made Trump the enemy. And America became divided, and that's why we have the shit show that we have today. So when you're saying like now we want to make Fauci the enemy,
Right.
I have a problem with that because look how wild.
Wait, those
it
are
is.
two different things. Explain it to me,
But
Pat.
it's not two different things
How?
because you just said you said instead of making China the boogeyman, we're
Right.
making Fauci the boogeyman.
Yes.
Yes. In 2020 March, instead of making China the boogeyman, we made Trump the boogeyman. That's what you did. CNN did that.
No, that's not what I did.
So CNN didn't make Trump the boogeyman.
Trump has always been the boogeyman for most of the media.
Okay, then.
but it wasn't about COVID.
Well,
I'm just telling you, it wasn't about
Well,
COVID.
he certainly
actually
was the
got kind of a
boogeyman.
pass.
Yes, he was the boogeyman far
before.
before COVID.
Sure,
When
way before.
when you guys were repeating mindlessly every day that there was some giant conspiracy with Trump and Russia, and leading the entire country to believe that our election had been stolen by a hostile foreign power, and that Vladimir Putin had, and once again, like we won't get out of you tonight, not one apology from anyone at CNN when it turns out there was zero evidence that was true. And you could say we just guessed right, but all of us who were paying attention knew from the very beginning that this was totally made up. And of all the things you could say about Donald Trump,
How could you have known right from the very beginning that it was totally made up?
because it was the most absurd claim ever. That when the CIA comes out and says Vladimir Putin has overthrown our elections and installed Donald Trump in there and presents zero
That
evidence
wasn't the
to back it up.
investigation. That's not the investigation. That's not the allegation.
Well, no, but it was what people on your former network said daily.
Listen,
it was what people
not
on
only
MSNBC
have
said
I never
daily.
said
Are we
that
gonna
Russia
pretend-
put in Trump.
So you're
I've never
saying-
had anyone
Chris,
on my show who
Chris,
said that.
let's just be honest here for a second.
Go ahead.
Are you
Try
going to
it.
genuinely tell me
Yeah.
that CNN and MSNBC did not every day for 3 years give the impression that Donald Trump was involved in a conspiracy with the Russians?
They absolutely covered the investigation into Donald Trump from a special prosecutor every day. MSNBC did it
And
differently, I would argue, than CNN.
why was that special prosecutor appointed?
Why was it a point? Because the Attorney General thought he should be.
Here's why. And he admitted it himself on 60 Minutes, if any of you guys want to go back and listen to it. Andrew McCabe, the number 3 guy at the Justice Department, said, after Donald Trump fired Comey, these are his words, not mine. After he fired Comey, they decided to try to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove him on the grounds that he was unstable. And they realized they couldn't get enough of his cabinet to do it, so they settled on a special prosecutor. That's why. Not a single one of them thought he was a Russian spy. Let me tell you something. Carter Page, the one guy who got in trouble from the FBI, as I'm sure you guys both know. Why did he get in trouble? Because he lied to the FISA court. Because the CIA told the FBI that Carter Page was their guy. They knew he wasn't a Russian spy. The whole thing was complete nonsense just to frame Donald Trump so he couldn't get his agenda through. And CNN ran with it every single day. Unquestioning about the story itself.
I don't see it the same way. I don't think it was about keeping Donald Trump from having an agenda. I do think there is a problem with prosecuting political opponents. And I do think that both of the parties engage in it. And I think it's another signal that the party system has to die. I agree with that. There is no world in which you can be skeptical to the extent that they're sharing information with you. But when you have a special prosecutor, right, or special counsel, whatever you want to call it, and they are doing an investigation, you're going to cover it. And you're going to look at the information that they're saying coming out. And of course, it's always copious leaks because there are politicians involved. And you're going to do it. Fox did it also. And they started doing it less and less as they believed that it wasn't working for their audience, which I understand the consideration. You can judge it any way you want. MSNBC, it was working very well. For CNN, it was more of a balance. But the idea, it was. Because look, I had a show there. And
CNN ranged from Democrats who hate Donald Trump to Republicans who hate Donald Trump and everything in between.
Look, they were one of the only people who put Republicans on the payroll to talk about Trump.
If
We
they-
certainly didn't get that at MSNBC. We had Santorum.
Yes, only if they hated Trump, though, right? Which I'm not a big Trump fan, but that was still kind of inappropriate.
Santorum, right.
You don't like him either?
No.
He liked
Who
Trump.
likes Rick Santorum?
He liked Trump. Although they did come up with a terrible name for what is a Santorum.
I'm
That is
familiar.
terrible. That was terrible that they did that to him, although he found it pretty funny. Anyway, the point is this. I will defend CNN. And I know some people think that's strange because I got shit canned by CNN. I understand. I don't see it that way. I definitely got fired, but that doesn't mean I'm going to blame CNN. I'll defend it. However, it is not fair to make me own everything that CNN does. Because I don't control anything but my show.
Okay, fair enough. So that's fair. I'm also being critical of CNN here, but I will say, disclaimer for the rest of the show, anything I criticize CNN, that's true. You don't own the entire network. You only own your portion of it. So let me ask you.
I couldn't have that much power. I got fired.
Fair enough. Okay, so let me ask you about what you do own, and in the spirit of we're being honest here, and our currency is the truth. Your reemergence from your basement, real or fake?
Yes. you want the answer? I'll give it to you. All right. Here's what I was told. The short answer is real. Here's what I was told.
You were quarantined that whole time in your basement?
Yeah.
You didn't leave?
Oh yeah. No. This is what happened. I was quarantined the time I needed to be. I forget. There was 3 days with fever below 99 or whatever the number was.
He was out riding his bike while he was supposed to be quarantined. They have video of it.
You guys vaguely remember the same as I. I had a problem. I had fever for a very long time. They didn't understand why. It had something to do with how my body was responding to the spike protein we now know based on my blood test now. I got to that point of being allowed to leave, but I still had fever because my natural body temperature is not 98.6, it's 97.6. So for me, being just under 100 or whatever the level was, I forgot, Rob, they can find out what the level was. I had it, but I didn't feel comfortable because I still felt sick. And at the time, the biggest names in our government who I was in contact with couldn't tell me what was the safest thing to do because I was afraid of getting my family. So what they said was, do it in stages. So I would kind of come upstairs with the N95 on and I would try to get some energy, walk up and down the stairs. Then it was
go for a bike ride.
I'm going to come upstairs. The house was, because my wife was taking care of everybody because everybody was getting sick. And I would do a little bit of cleaning, come back down. Still wasn't living upstairs. Then I would come up, I'd start cooking because my wife got sick from me. That's a great thing to have over your spouse, by the way. So I then started coming up more. And I phased up and in. Our youngest, when I was coming up, finally I could move upstairs. Everybody was good with it. Christina had gotten sick. Mario had gotten sick. The other two hadn't. It had been about 10 days past when I was supposedly allowed to come up. But again, I still felt like shit. And I knew that I had a fever. I didn't have a fever by their definition, but I had a fever. So then when it was finally over, they took the picture of me coming upstairs. There was so much appetite to take me down that was seized on, as it was that I wasn't quarantining because I was seen in Southampton driving around with my family. No, I wasn't. I was seen in my own backyard in East Hampton. And a guy drove into my backyard and saw me there and came walking over and said terrible things to my wife and kids. And then sued me for it. So that's what happened.
But so wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I'm confused because that was such a long answer for such a short question.
I quarantined in the basement. The picture that
you were
saw,
outside with your family in the middle of it.
No, not in the middle. It was after the period where they said I could come out, but I didn't feel right about it, so I was doing it in phases. And the photo was from when that's it. I'm not staying in the basement anymore. I could.
All right, let's go to Nancy's excuse for why she had to get her hair did in the middle of it.
Speed back up. I can sleep in my room. I can do everything normally.
So that was. You're telling me that that guy, his
Rob, what is that? What is that picture?
That's me coming out of the basement.
After his confrontation with you?
Yeah. Yeah. And look, the confrontation again. Look, you and I live in different media realities, okay? There is a currency to taking people down in the media, okay? I mean, podcasts aren't strangers to that either, certainly the Skank one. But it's a different reality for us, okay? They want to take you down. And during COVID, people were pissed off about what was going on. I was one of the people who they blamed. And they would come after me.
Well,
I had people come after me for not wearing a mask when I took a job.
Well, listen, I mean, yeah, because
you were on the news yelling at all of us to wear our masks.
You were a part of this corporate media apparatus that was shaming everyone who wasn't wearing masks outside, even though it was completely anti-science, rooted in nothing but pseudoscience. And might the reason be that so many people were angry at you guys? Because this is always one of the things that's been really fascinating to me. And I worked for CNN, or I worked for Turner for about a year. This is before COVID. It was in 2017. But it was always really fascinating to me to get a sense of the culture in that building. And, by the way, before COVID, trust in media had evaporated and reached all-time lows. After COVID, the corporate media will never recover. I mean, they are done. And it was always interesting to see how people at CNN would grapple with that. I mean, when Jim Acosta was sent out to Trump rallies, and they'd be screaming, CNN sucks. And then there'd be these segments on CNN about what a hostile environment it was for Acosta, you know, and this poor guy. And then every week, Brian Stelter would have a different show about why no one trusts the media anymore. And the report would always be, we're doing a great job. It's just this misinformation online. It's just Trump. It's just everyone else. And no one in the corporate media world, because they're insulated in such a bubble, seems to be capable of recognizing that the reason is you.
You don't think
It's you.
You don't think
That's
there's
why.
misinformation?
Yes, there is misinformation, and you are one of the biggest
You are the misinformation, Chris.
purveyors of it. That's the issue. That's a great question.
But that is
No,
that's
Chris asked me
suggestive that
how.
I say things that I know are not true.
Okay, no, so maybe
That's
I can't,
misinformation.
listen, wait, so I can't prove you know it's not true, but I can tell you this. When you said, looking right into the camera to your audience, and you said about the WikiLeaks dump in 2016, hey, it's illegal for you guys to look at this. You have to just trust us. It's different for the media, so you have to get it from us.
Yeah.
That's totally not true.
What was I referring to?
The WikiLeaks dump.
No, but why was I saying that?
I don't know, it's completely untrue.
Under the Espionage Act, we didn't know at the time what would happen if things were deemed classified and you cached them from online. I had 3 different prosecutors on who said, we don't know how it goes. The only time it's ever been tested is with the media in the Pentagon Papers case. So we knew that the media is given protection on classified documents, even if they're leaked or stolen, but we don't know about the general public. That's what I said. Then WikiLeaks jumped on my head. Okay, that's what I signed up for by being in the media. I then said again, we released all of the things as they came out. All of Podesta's emails went right out. We never censored any of them. So all I was saying is be careful, that we don't have to be as careful because we know that if they come after us for what we do, we'll get protection. I don't know about everybody else.
I'm sure CNN,
but that's the explanation.
CNN would get protection. I'm sure Julian Assange won't. Doesn't matter whether you're a journalist or not. It's illegal to leak classified information if you're in the government.
Yeah.
It is totally legal for any of you to read it if it gets leaked, and this is just not true. And
well, no, hold on. It is true under. Oh, hold on. Under the. Listen, this matters. Do I think you should be able to download it? Of course. It's not even a question. It's easy. Does it get a little weird? Yeah, it gets a little weird because are we encouraging people to steal things and do things? No, I don't think so. But if it happens, I think you should be able to get it. If it's available, you should be able to get it. Is that a little sticky legally? Maybe. The Espionage Act is not that clear about it. That was my concern. It wasn't listen to me and nobody else. Okay, I've never played that game.
That is what you said.
I know, but you
your
are
audience.
making it mean something.
Well, the thing is that's
why I'm here. I will tell you what I meant.
Even if
Don't words always mean something?
in the Julian Assange case, by the way, if you guys want to look into the details of it, the claim that they're trying to make was that somehow he was involved with Bradley Manning on the actual tape, which is not true at all. But even they won't just say he wasn't allowed to read the classified information once it was leaked.
One of the reasons we kept interviewing
Chris,
Assange is because we didn't know that was true or fair.
So why is it, Chris, when you make these mistakes, they always go in one direction on the behalf of powerful? Like, you never seem to make these mistakes where it's just like, oh, by the way, guys, we don't know about this vaccine. That never came out of your mouth.
Listen,
when you were smearing everybody like me and my family who wasn't taking it.
For what? Again.